Hi guys, so with this plugin you can implement any interactable in your game without any coding. You might want a guy to just pick up a phone, it could be something as simple as that. Or maybe you want to add complicated puzzles into your dungeons. You can do all that with this plugin. I'll just show you a quick montage of what all you can accomplish. You can use a switch to open a door. You can interact with it in many ways. You might want to press or mash it. You can do all of that. If there's an obstacle like a wall of vines blocking your path, it can auto detect when you're in range and open. You can use a particular key to open a particular chest or interact with anything really. You can activate traps, you can break objects and implement complicated puzzles like switches that have many stages, not just on and off. And even doors that open in many stages. Maybe you have a valve that doesn't open all the way. First it opens a bit, then a bit more, then a bit more, then all the way. It's like a water level valve. You can add that as well. What you're gonna get is a way to implement everything you just saw. But you have to have the assets. You have to have the door and you have to have the switch. But now you don't have to code. As soon as the player touches the switch, it will interact with the door. There might be a boulder. As soon as the player goes near it and presses a button, he can push the boulder and the boulder can roll down. You don't need any coding for this. For the more advanced bits, say you want to implement an inventory system where everything he picks up goes into his backpack and you have small icons showing up. For that, you are going to have to code. You have to enter blueprints or you have to do C++ coding. But you can still build up on top of this. It will still save you a bunch of time. So let's get into the tutorial. And this works for multiplayer and single player games as well. Let's set everything up before we start. We have to open our player blueprint. In my case, I'm using the third person character. Then you go into your class settings right here and find your interfaces. Here there's an option called interfaces. Now I've already added this. I'll just remove it. I'll say no. And I'll just add it again. So it's called BPI player and triggers. Make sure to add this. And there's another thing you have to add, this thing. So add BPC player and trigger. Once you add these, you can get into the blueprint itself. So let me open the event graph. If you can't find it, just double click here and it will open up. So first, let's say what key has to be pressed in order to interact with an item. I'll just say F has to be pressed for now. Then we're going to take our BPC player and trigger in. And we're going to call interact key pressed. Okay. Pressed goes here and key goes here. So make sure pressed is true right now and leave this empty. If you're using input actions, you can connect your input action in here. I'll show you how to do that in a bit. When it's released, we want to, this will only be called whenever you're holding a button and then releasing it. Just make sure pressed is false and connect key to key. So this is how it looks when you press F. Suppose you have an input action. Sorry, this goes in here. When it's triggered, you're going to call this. Make sure input action is connected in here. Leave the key empty. And when it's released, that is either cancelled or completed. You're going to just do false and make the input action come in again. But for now, I'll just delete this. Just a bit of setup left. Go to interfaces and click here. Disable movement or camera. Now we're just going to add these in one by one. The thing is, you don't have to write any logic. It's already there in this BPC player and trigger, which we're going to bring in again. All you have to do is take the same name, the same event name, just type it in, disable movement or camera, and it will be not preceded, it will be succeeded by a word called function. So just make sure you select that. We do the same thing for the rest.
Select delete tags from player, take BPC player and trigger, call the delete, then we have send tags to player, bring it here, BPC player and trigger, copy paste.
Oh, this is actually the order is switch goes into switch and this goes into this. Nice. So that's all you have to do in terms of blueprints. You don't have to do anything else, at least for this video, for most of the functions, unless you're going to really advanced stuff. Or maybe if you have an inventory system and you want to show icons, then you have to do something after this. But for now, let's just get everything else set up. And then in the next video, I'll get into the more advanced stuff. There's two things for an interactable object. One is a trigger. There's a normal and multi-stage. For now, let's just go with a normal trigger. A trigger tells you what to do. So maybe I go in range here and it says press F. So that's what a trigger is. And a trigger can't just be there by itself. If you press F and nothing happens, it's so anticlimactic. So instead you have a triggered object as well. So suppose this is a door. So maybe when I go here and press F, the door opens. So the first thing we do is connect this trigger to the object, connect the switch to the door. So we go to linked actors. I'll just expand the screen here. Make sure you select this linked actor. Now there's a connection here. Whenever you activate this, the door knows. How are we going to activate it? I'll just say we're going to press F to activate it. If you selected press, click here. Since we selected press, can flip midway. For now, I'll leave it as false. I'll show you what happens if we make it true later. This is pretty important, the interaction widget. When I go into this zone, I want something to pop up, like press F or something. So I've already got a widget. I'm just going to call it default switch. And suppose you want to increase this zone right here, go into more options and just say maybe 200. So it's become bigger. That's the switch activation distance. If the player goes in here, he can activate the switch. Now let's go into the on and off level sequence. This is the most important bit actually. This is the motion. What I need to do is make a level sequence to on it, and I can make another level sequence to off it, or maybe I can just reverse the on level sequence. This level sequence can be reused. Suppose I have 100 switches that look like this. I don't have to keep remaking the level sequence. Let me create a level sequence and I'll call it this is the level sequence for the switch or for the trigger. So I'll add the actor, the trigger, and this is really important, okay, right here. Make sure you add the mesh. In this case, the mesh is this switch, and only do operations or transforms on that mesh. If you don't do that, if you add the transforms directly to the trigger, it's always going to snap into this place. You can't reuse it multiple times. Let me add a transform. Let it go from here to yeah, let it go here. Nice. So that is how it looks when it ons. We've already finished making it, so we just have to add it here. It was called ls YouTube white blob. Yeah. And for the off sequence, I'll just say let's play the same thing but in reverse. I want a level sequence for the door as well, so let's make one for the door. Add level sequence. We do the same thing. First we add the actor, that's the triggered object, and then we make sure to add the mesh, that's the door in this case. We do the same thing. Now we have to make sure to specify that level sequence here, so we just go here into the triggered object, into our open level sequence details, open, and for the close I'll just say a door open in reverse. That's fine. Most of the times you can just play it in reverse, but sometimes you want specific sound effects to play when you're closing, a different sound effect when you're opening and closing the door. In those cases you can either use this option, or you can make a custom level sequence for it to close. So let's see if this works now. When I press play, first when I go in range, F should pop up. F has popped up. When I press F, that opens and then the door opens. Perfect. When I press F again though, it doesn't close. If I go to the switch details, after the switch has opened, it stays open. We might want the player to be able to close it manually. So when we select that, we go here, we press F, it opens. I press F again and it closes. And now this is where the other option comes in. If you selected press, click here, can flip midway. If you say it's true, right now we have to wait for it to go to the end. Let me make this false, okay? So let me press play. Now I'm spamming F and nothing happened in middle. It has to go to the end, and then that's the only time I can deactivate it. So if I say can flip midway and I make it true, we go here, we spam F, and the switch spams with us. There's also the case that you might want the door to open immediately after I press the switch. When do you activate the linked actors? As the switch is opening. So we go here, we press F, the door opens as soon as we press F, and it closes as soon as we press F. And if we spam it, it spams with us. Nice. If you want to add an opening sound or a VFX, you can do that by just going here. We can add it to either the switch or the door or both. So let me just add it to the door for now. Let's say I want a sound of it opening. Yeah, that sounds nice. If I press play, the sound plays. And if we want some VFX, we can add it anywhere. Let's add it to the switch now. Sorry guys, I had to re-record this. So you can just drag the sparks in. Make sure it's attached to the trigger. In that case, it will always come where the trigger is. Initially, I'll keep it not spawned. Then maybe I'll spawn it in frame 1. Situations like these are where you might want to make an off-level sequence as well, because this sound won't play when you're playing it in the backwards direction. Really quick, I'll show you the hold and mash options. So if I say hold, you're going to have to hold for the duration of the level sequence, okay? So right now the duration's I think 1 second because it was 30 frames. Say I wanted to play twice as fast. So now I'll only have to hold F for half a second. I'm holding F, there it goes. And when I released F, it went back down. If I hold F here and release, it goes back down like that. And there's also the mash option. Now in the case of mash option, we might want a different widget. We might want a percentage bar to show up in front of us. Switch with progress bar, yeah. We also have to go into this and select the mash options. So when I press F once, I want it to increase by say 10%. So right now it will take about 10 presses to finish. But let's say I want it to decrease really fast. So now I need to keep pressing very fast. If I wait for a second, it goes back down to 0. So let me press play. If I press F once, it went to 10 and went back to 0. But if I spam F, it's going up farther. Now I left F. Now I'm going to spam it again. There we go. It's open fully. So guys, really quick, I forgot to add this in the video. If you want to update the mash widget, right, just go into widgets. You can just make a copy of this default switch mash, and here you can see that this is the progress bar, so you can just change whatever you want. If you really want to make your own widget from scratch, then make it from scratch, but make sure it includes this BPI trigger widget under implemented interfaces. You're going to get these. Just set the current percentage, that will be the widget percentage. And the parent is the switch linked to this, the switch whose percentage you're reflecting. Now chances are you don't actually want to use these white blobs, you want some nice meshes. So what you have to do is just hide the switch and instead add your mesh. So add it under default scene root, there we go. And we'll do the same thing for our door. This is my door, it's in 3 parts, I'll add it in. Then all that's left is making the sequences. I'll just go by it quickly. For the switch, I'm just adding the movable static mesh, and the same for the door. And if I press F, that opens and the door opens. What about the treasure chest example, which I showed in the intro video? That's the same concept. It is still a trigger, and it is still a triggered object. The only difference is that here the trigger is invisible. That's the only thing. So let me just set up the trigger first. All we need to do is say invisible switch true. We need to link the switch to this actor. So we add a linked actor. We make sure it's linked to the correct actor. I hit the door, made it into a treasure chest, and set up the level sequence. If I press F, it opens really nicely. Now I've added a key. The key is the object, the sphere around it is the trigger. I'll show you how to make player animations as well. Right now this is how the level sequence looks. It just rises up and then vanishes into oblivion. I'm gonna select my character blueprint. I'm just using the default third-person character. Make sure you add that same thing into the level sequence. And once you do that, delete the control rig, and if there's a transform track, delete that one as well. This next thing is more of a general tip, but you have to do it here as well. Just right click and convert selected bindings, select the replaceable from director thingy, quick bind and resolve to player pawn. Just add whatever animation you want to. So I think I've got some default attack animation. Just make sure, I'll blend it a bit 1 second. So let's do this. And just make sure that it ends just at or before the level sequence. Otherwise you're going to have him stuck at the last pose, because what we do is we keep the state at the end. Just make sure it ends over here. So we can save this, close this, and now if all goes well, we go here, we find the key, we press F, and he opens. You can see there's options called disable movement and disable camera. So You check these, and for the duration of picking up the key or for the duration of that animation of that level sequence, you're not going to be able to do anything. Now let's get into the more advanced bits. Let's say I want to pick this key up, and then only with the key can I open the treasure chest, otherwise it stays closed. When I pick up the key, right, I want it to add a tag to my player. Send data to player under more options. Oh, sorry, it's the second one, send data to player. It'll be fixed, it's just a small bug. Send tag, yes, and I'll just say the tag to send is, I like giving it a unique tag because there are many keys. I don't just want to call it key. I'll call it YT demo. That's the level name, underscore key 1. Okay, so now I've got to go to the trigger, okay? Triggers over here. It says actor must have tag. So unless I have this tag, I cannot open the treasure chest. First, let me go to the chest. F isn't even popping up because I don't have the key. But if I go here, press F, pick it up, press F here, the chest opens. Now, if you want something like a Legend of Zelda chest opening, where the player has to be stuck here, and you have some fancy camera movements, first let's add the character in. Oh, nice. So what we're going to do is we're going to snap the player into this place. For that we need to add two actors, okay? Snap character and snap trigger. You can just approximately match their position and rotation. So not really perfect, but good enough. I'll add snap character too. Make sure you add it into this. And we need the snap trigger as well. We are going to add it in. And lastly, I want some sort of fancy camera movement, okay? So I'm going to add this. This will add a cine camera actor. And before we do anything, make sure you press this plus button and attach it to whatever you want. I'll attach it to the triggered object. Now you can do whatever you want in the camera and everything will work out fine. And you're going to have to go here and just search for snap in place. It will be under more options, so you can just type snap player into place. Tick it. You also have to make sure that this snap trigger arrow, right, is pointing towards the forward vector. That's the red direction. Now if I hit play, first I pick up the key and then I press F. I've snapped into place and the camera view happened. What if you want this door of plants, this wall of plants, to sense when you're near and automatically open when you're in a zone? You want it to auto activate. So I'm gonna add the normal trigger, the BP trigger. So there's an invisible switch option. So when the player comes here, it should open. There's another thing we have to check though, that is auto activate. When the player is in zone, we want it to activate. And suppose he goes out through here, or if he goes out of the zone, we can have it deactivate as well. I'll fast forward past this bit. We've seen it before. We just link the door to the trigger. We make our level sequence and then we link the level sequence to the door. We go, we enter the passageway and it opens and it closes behind us. This is how we make traps, guys. It's the same thing we've done before. There's a trigger that's a switch and let's have a trap that's a spike that's going to fall down. When we trigger the switch, it's just going to run the trap. So guys, in that same example, let's imagine this is a deadly spike. If you touch it, you have to tell the player is dead. So what you're going to do is just click here, go to send tag. I'll just do it from scratch. Go to send tag, and yeah, sure, delete if closed. Whenever the object touches the player, that's when you have to send the tag dead. And I've just modified my third person character blueprint a bit. I know I said there was no blueprinting, but this is more advanced stuff. Whenever the tag gets sent, I'll just print the tag. So now if I touch it, it should say dead. 3, 2, 1. Yes, there it is. And maybe you want some sort of AoE effect. While I'm touching it, you want to say like hurt maybe. So I'll say hurt. And when you leave the zone, you want to say I'm not hurt anymore. In that case, instead of collision, let's just make it an overlap. So I've changed the graph again. When I touch it, it should say hurt in blue. When I leave it, it says hurt in red. Say you have 100 of these switches and you want to keep most of the parameters same, but you just want to change a few. That's why you use switch profiles. So let me just get this in. Let's say I want, by default, I want my switch to have this default switch press interaction widget. Yeah, default switch. Maybe I want it to be 200. All I do is I click here and I click on the profile I've just made. It's called generic switch profile. Now you can see the widget has changed and the activation distance has changed. And the last thing we're going to cover today is multiple conditions opening one door. What if I want all three switches to be pressed and only then the door can open? That's where we're going to use conditions. This multi-stage thing that you're seeing is when a switch doesn't have only an on and off state. It has other states in between. Like maybe it can go from red to black to white and black back to red. It's a color changing switch. And it can work for doors as well. For now, we're just going to use a normal trigger condition. Instead of directly connecting the trigger to the object, we're going to connect them to the condition instead. So let's send the data. Let me click here. Linked actors. Let's clear it. And let me send the data to the condition. The same thing here. And the same thing here. So keep in mind that if you're using switch profiles, everything except the linked actors will get copied over. So you might need to reset the linked actors. Now what you have to tell this cube is, if I want all three to be open, I'll just say the number of switches. I'm not going to select pattern here. I'm just going to say let the number of switches be 3. And once that's done, this has to send a signal to the door. So instead of these 3 getting connected directly to the door, the 3 are getting connected to the cube. The cube is sending a signal to the door. So now let's go to where the door is. I need all 3 to be activated. 1, 2, and 3. That's when the door opens. Say I want 2 out of the 3 activated. You can just say 2. And maybe I want to reset. If there's a third switch, I don't want it to activate. In that case, I'll say the reset condition is if 3 switches have been turned on. So now 1 switch, the door opens. It doesn't open. 2 switches, the door opens. 3 switches and everything gets reset. We may also want a particular pattern. So let me just select pattern. We need to add all the switches we want in the pattern. So let me add 3 switches. Maybe I want the first switch to be on, the second switch to be off, and the third switch to be on. So the middle switch has to be off. In order, make sure I do it in this particular order, but I'll just do it normally for now. Only if switches 1 and 3 are on, will the door open. If I off this switch, the door closes again. Maybe if I on this switch, the door won't open. So guys, that's it. That's the plugin. At least that's the first video. The next video is the more advanced stuff, the multi-stage doors. I'll get into that later. Bye.